Judge Hatcher, can you just tell me if I can hear me all right? Thanks.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kleiser.
Seem to have a bit of communication problems with the last virtual local public hearing, so I just want to make sure I'm coming in loud and clear.
Your volume is a little low this time as well.
Does this do any better?
Yes.
All right. Just need to bring the computer closer. Thank you.
I'm really sorry to make this awkward, Mr. Kleiser, but yes, your volume is great now.
That's perfect. That's exactly why I asked. Ms. Taylor, Tiger Court reporting?
Yes.
I was just going to check if she had my information.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Kleiser, I have it.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how this works, Mark.
Miss Welly, was that you asking?
Oh, I was just talking to my husband. Yes. I've never used one of these.
Not a problem. I completely understand. We'll get started at 6 o'clock, so in about 13 minutes.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is just kind of sitting. I wanted to make sure that the WebEx meeting was open for anyone who wanted to join a little early like yourself. But otherwise, everyone is just kind of sitting. They'll mute their sound and we'll just wait for 6 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
That's good.
In on a number of these different areas. The problem is that fight has to
Oh, that's the judge.
Hey, Joe Chatter.
Mr. Pringle, how are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings.
Fridays now because of the increase. Governor Mike Parson has for younger more younger age demographics are catching the virus. And it continues his theme, personal responsibility.
Okay, everyone, we're going to give it just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
All right. Okay. It is 6 o'clock. Let's go on the record. First, as we're just experiencing, I would ask that everyone please mute themselves on their end unless they are speaking. That will cut down on the noise level and also prevent audio feedback. I do see we have our commissioners on the line. That is Chairman Sylvie, Commissioner Kinney, and Commissioner Coleman. Today is July 14th, 2020. The Missouri Public Service Commission has set this time for a local public hearing. Sorry about that. I'll get everybody muted. The Missouri Public Service Commission has set this time for a local public hearing in case number WR-2020-0275. This includes sewer case SR-2020-0274, which was consolidated. This case is captioned as in the matter of Elm Hills Utility Operating Company, Inc., request for a water and sewer rate increase. The commission has scheduled this local public hearing to give members of the public a chance to comment about Elm Hills application. The Missouri Public Service Commission regulates the rates charged by public utility companies in Missouri to ensure that those rates are just and reasonable. The commission also regulates the quality of service and safety of the operations of public utilities. The commission is made up of 5 commissioners. The commissioners are appointed by the governor to fixed terms and confirmed by the Senate. The commissioners employ a staff of engineers, accountants, attorneys, financial analysts, and other specialists in the field of utility regulation. My name is Charles Hatcher. I am the regulatory law judge and will preside over this hearing. With me today are Commission Chairman Ryan Sylvie, Commissioner Bill Kinney, and Commissioner Maida Coleman. This is an official hearing of the Missouri Public Service Commission, and the statement and testimony of witnesses will be recorded by the court reporter and must be given under oath. All of the commissioners will have the opportunity to read all of the witnesses' remarks, and additionally, I will brief the commissioners on what was said here tonight. Let's begin by asking council to enter their appearance for the record. Elm Hills Utility Operating Company. Go ahead.
Good evening, Jennifer Hernandez, Dean Cooper with the law firm of Bryden Swearingen in England. Our mailing address is 312 East Capitol Avenue, Post Office Box 456, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65102.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And for commission staff?
Good evening, Judge. Thank you. Mark Johnson and Travis Pringle on behalf of the staff of the Missouri Public Service Commission. Our address is 200 Madison Street, P.O. Box 360, Jefferson City, Missouri, 65102.
And for Office of the Public Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening. John Kleiser, with the Missouri Office of the Public Counsel, and my contact information has already been supplied to the court reporter.
Thank you. Are there any opening comments from the commissioners? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and get started. The process that we will use for the hearing tonight will be to call the names listed on the sign-up sheet in the order they appear. Council, in this case, I'm going to be using the same sign-up sheet that Mr. Johnson emailed last week. When I call your name, please go ahead and unmute either your phone or your computer. I will then place you under oath and ask you to state and spell your name, and then you can offer comments to the commission. Given the number of people that we do have here today, please try and limit remarks to 5 minutes so that everyone has a chance to testify. The commissioners will not be able to answer any of your questions today because they do have to remain impartial until after all of the evidence is presented at the evidentiary hearing. The commission has not made any decisions yet in this case. The commissioners are interested in your comments and will use them to help make their decision. If you have any questions after the hearing, you can use the same email address that you used to register for this hearing. That's elmhillscomments@psc.mo.gov. All right, the first name that I have on my list is Sandra Welly. Ms. Welly, if you would please unmute.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please go ahead and state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Sandra Welly, Welly.
Thank you, ma'am. And go ahead with your comments.
I'm just here to listen for the most part. I worked with Todd Thomas from the very beginning at Rainbow Acres, and so I've just been following this process through with our lagoon. I'm just interested in seeing how it's all going to wrap up and tie up. So I'm sitting in, going to listen to what all is being said.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Are there any questions from council?
Are you that?
No, I was just asking
Oh, I'm
if the
sorry.
attorneys had any
Okay.
questions. Do the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Welly? All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you being here. Our next witness is Robert Meyer. Mr. Meyer, if you could go ahead and unmute. Mr. Meyer, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Oh, sorry, I thought I saw Mr. Meyer's name on the list. I do not see him here. We'll call his name again at the end of the hearing. Lydia and Chris Naylor, and I see Miss Naylor on the line. Miss Naylor, if you can go ahead and unmute, I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Thank you. And please go ahead and state and spell your last name for the record.
It's Naylor, Naylor.
Thank you. Go ahead with your comments for the commissioners.
I've actually only lived here a little over a year. I live on a fixed income. My husband and I both live on my fixed income at this moment because of everything going on. But I'm disabled. Since I've lived here, there has been no improvements on the water system that I know of. And if there has, I really cannot tell. And all I know is that I really don't understand everything that's going on, but if there's going to be more improvements, I can't afford to live here much longer if we're expected to pay for those improvements. I will be forced to move out of my home, and I really don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Naylor, did you also want to comment while you're there?
I just concur with what she's saying. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next on my list. The next I have on my list is Chuck Gray. I do not see a Chuck Gray here. Is Chuck Gray in attendance? Okay, we'll call that name again at the end of the hearing. Juanita Herring, and I saw Miss Herring was online earlier. Miss Herring?
Yes, sir.
Yes, all right, thank you. I'll go ahead and swear you in, ma'am. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could please spell your state and spell your last name.
Herring.
Thank you, Miss Herring. Go ahead with your comments.
I would like my son-in-law to talk for me if that's all right.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to let us.
Sir,
make-
I'm sorry. Can I get your name first?
Absolutely. It is William Wittenberg. Last name is spelled Wittenben, B as in boy, URG.
Thank you.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Wickenberg, let me go ahead and swear you in just as a formality. Mr. Wickenberg, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely, I do.
Thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
Well, I guess as many of the residents are or have stipulated, especially in a lot of the letters that we saw that were submitted, Mrs. Herring is a widow of a very long-term veteran who lives on an extremely limited income. Fortunately for her, her house is paid for, but I know that there's a lot of duress because she is concerned about the fact that she may end up having to move or because she won't be able to afford to stay there. Now, we made several comments when we submitted our written comments. There were 9 questions that we had asked, and I'm presuming that those are going to get answered at some point in the ball game. But there are some other questions that we have popped up with, such as why is this not multiple rate cases as opposed to one lump sum rate case? And after the theoretical recoup of all of the expenses that are incurred, especially the return on investment, which is, in my opinion, ridiculously high, are there any provisions for those rates to possibly go back down again? One of the questions that pops up is, once you guys have made your decision, is there a further appeals process by the homeowners? When do you anticipate making your decision? And then once the decision is made and all the rates and all the appeals have been exhausted, when do the new rates become effective? One of the things that Juanita here keeps telling me about is the fact that she is one elderly woman living by herself. And why is it that she is about to get charged the same amount as somebody who's living in the mobile home park who has a lesser rate but has more people, or people that she knows that are very close to her that are basically a house full of individuals, and there have never been any provisions to actually meter the flows of water into each individual house. So it's kind of a crazy mathematical thing that we're concerned about there. How am I doing for time, sir?
You're okay. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you. One of the things, and I don't know if this is going to get answered or not because there were some concerns, but are there any family members or business associates that were part of the awarded contracts that seems make this appear to be high. And it just seems like some of these expenses are truly out of the ballpark. And we're trying to establish if we're ever going to be able to see what some of those, what they're calling confidential numbers, happen to be. And also, is there any way of us being supplied with the number of houses or number of residences or number of businesses and that's being served by each one of the categories that is on the list? There are several places called, you've got State Park Village. What does that consist of? Missouri Utilities. What does that consist of? Twin Oaks. What does that consist of? And would like to get some further information on that. But I guess the final question that I'm hoping that I can get away with or get an answer back before this meeting is over is that I believe there is an additional period for additional written comments. And what is the deadline for submitting those additional comments, either via mail or via email? And that's anything else, Juanita? Nope,
No.
that's it.
All of these that we submitted all those questions will be answered. They'll be given to the commissioners.
Okay, so yeah, we originally submitted 9 comments when we signed up for this. And I'm presuming that those 9 comments are going to get addressed at some point in the ballgame.
Okay. As I said earlier, first, during this hearing, the commissioners aren't able to answer questions. And that's because they have to keep their impartiality in making the ultimate decision in the rate case. However, my understanding is on your questions that the parties had set up a procedure to allow for the normal, the abnormal, since we're doing this virtually, but question and answer that we would normally have. As far as the deadline goes, I believe the deadline is 5 days after this hearing, so that would be July 19th. And as for comments, I would ask staff or OPC or Ms. Hernandez if they know the deadline on the comments for the case. And I know comments can be made also at the PSC website. So you can go to psc.mo.gov, and in the upper right-hand corner is the link for submitting comments. But let's see if we have any answers on the deadline dates and how the parties were going to be able to get back in touch with you.
Submitted those.
Judge, this is Mark Johnson with staff.
Yes.
The deadline for written questions to be submitted to the email address for this case is July 20th. Comments can continue to be submitted via the Commission's website as well. And the deadline for comments to be submitted into the case file is July 22nd. And I would encourage anyone that has any additional questions to please submit those to the email address. We are in the process of responding to each and every question we've received, but due to the newness of the process, it's taking a little longer than usual, but we will get to your questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate that. Council, are there any hearings for Ms. Herring?
No, thank you.
All right. I'm hearing none. Commissioner, are there any questions or comments for Ms. Herring? All right, hearing none. Sometimes it takes a second with the technology to unmute.
Judge Hatcher, actually, do you mind if I
Yes,
ask?
go ahead.
have you been able to access the case information from?
I'm sorry. I don't. Oh, there you go. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, I'll be clear. This is John Kleiser from the OPC. Have you been able to access the case information from the Commission's EFIS website? I know that probably isn't going to answer all of your questions. We're in the process of responding to some of them, but I just want to make sure that you're aware of that tool.
Yes,
Was that directed to us?
Yes.
Okay, we are familiar with the website and the area where I could see all of the comments that was submitted by all the various individuals. Is that the website you're referring to? And I can see the case documents, and I can see the flow chart of all of the scheduling and all of that kinds of stuff.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that you could see that. I know that.
Yes, absolutely.
Questions, but I want to make sure that you had that.
Yep, we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
excellent. Thank you. Ms. Herring, you are excused.
We have one additional question, and you'll be able to answer that right now. Is this meeting being recorded, and will it become part of the archive that is accessible?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a court reporter here, and we are also live streaming this on the PSC website. So there will be two copies. One copy will be the audio from this hearing. What we're actually streaming out to the public that aren't in attendance right now would be a picture just stating that there is a hearing going on, a local public hearing. So your faces aren't being broadcast, but the audio will be available, back to your question, and the transcript will be available, but that'll probably be in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and call the next witness.
Judge Hatcher, you would appear to have muted yourself.
Judge, I believe you were muted.
Yes, I was. Thank you. Let's go ahead to the next witness. Is there a Robert Cargill here? Oh, yes, I do see. Mr. Cargill, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Cargill, yes, sir.
Cargill, thank you, sir.
Cargile. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Please go ahead with your comments.
Real quick, I'm in the State Park Village area. Elm Hills bought out the previous owners about, I want to say about 2 to 3 years ago. And when they bought us out, they did, raise the rates up a little bit. And we're paying about 45, but now this new rate is going to be up to 68, which I don't mind a raise to fix things, but anything over 10%, I'm really questioning, and that's over a 50% raise. I'm really surprised they didn't do a gradual raise instead of all at once. And plus, with the current economic situations are also going on. I'm all right because I'm very save money and stuff like that. However, my neighbors and everything, they may not be in the same boat where they're living a paycheck to paycheck, and you're talking a rate from a monthly rate where you're asking them now to pay another $75 a month, period, just for the water and sewer. Again, I don't mind a 10% raise, and then maybe wait a year, and then the following year, like in a 2-year increments, if you have to raise it to recoup your money, I can understand that. But now all at once and then hit it across the board. That's my only concern right now and stuff. And that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So I hear you saying maybe a phase in is something to consider.
I would consider a phase in. That way it gives people a chance. Tell them what the beginning phase is and what the ending phase is. And maybe so that way they can plan it out. Because right now you're telling people, well, next month you're paying $70 and boom, boom, boom down the line. Some people are in fixed incomes. It may take them a lot longer to get that going, to actually do that. Again, I'm doing all right, but at the same time, the most I could see ever doing a rate like this is 10%, because now I'm asking questions. Was it overspending? They weren't watching the budget. What happened here to actually break everything? Because our stuff wasn't probably installed maybe at most. Our house is built in '94, and I can't see that sewer system being there for more than 30 years, if that. And if that's such the case, why wasn't this stuff was addressed within, the last 10 years or so? It's all of a sudden, everything has to be fixed right away, type thing. That's
Okay.
the only thing I got concerns about.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council? I don't see any hand waving, and I hear no questions.
Your Honor.
Yes.
John Kleiser again.
Yes, go ahead. A little louder, Mr. Kleiser.
I'm sorry. I'm having some communication issues. Mr. Cargal, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned the phase in, obviously, and you had suggested something like 2 years increments. Is that, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just kind of curious what you think the best kind of phase in rate would look like in terms of time period.
Phase in rates, we're talking a 50% raise. So the first 2 years I would do a 10%. And then the next 2 years after that, it's in a long-term situation where maybe you have to raise it up another 10%. But, and probably in 7 years or so, maybe get up to that point. But, that first year, you got to do just a little bit, and then you can maybe gradually, but give them the full picture of how much the raise is going to be over a couple of years type situation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's my only question.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Hearing none. Any questions from the commissioners? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cargal. You are excused. Let's go on to our next witness. I have Fred Bartol. I do not see a Mr. Bartol on the line.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, excellent.
How you doing? Good evening.
Before you get started, Mr. Bartol, let me go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And again, before you begin, I also see a Terry Bartol on the list. Is that your wife sitting next to you?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go ahead and swear you in as well, ma'am.
Sure.
Terry Bartol, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
So I have a few comments. One, it's almost like being a captured audience when we do not have a choice. So when they came in, they made all of these changes. They paid the high interest rate. They bid to, we don't know who bid and who received the bid, the awards. They did all the money and now they're asking us to pay. So it would sort of be like your child having a house built for them. They can afford $100,000 house, but somebody comes in and builds a $500,000 house and forces them to pay for it. And there weren't, as far as I'm aware, there weren't any meetings about this being annexed into the city. I believe we're only talking about possibly 400 homes and businesses being affected. And I think the smart move would have been annexing this into the city of Sedalia. And the recoup money, as I see it, if it's almost $2 billion or $2 million, they're recouping their money in about 3.4 years, which is unheard of. And that's with the excessive interest rate and return on investment and return on equity. And I'm sure their depreciation period is not a couple of years, it's probably over a 15-year period. And I'd like to know if they are depreciating all of that in 1 year, because that is a capital expenditure, which I don't believe they're legally allowed to do, following the good accounting practices, following GAAP. You know, next, the value of the homes now decrease. When you're talking about going from, you know, $40 to $200 a month, and you're talking about homes in that area that average maybe $100,000 per home, the mortgage payment on one of those homes, even at $100,000, with 20% down, you're probably looking at $500 mortgage payment, $400 over a 30-year mortgage. This rate increase is almost 50% of that mortgage payment. Our houses now have decreased. And how do we charge them for the decreased property value that we are incurring? It's already cost us a sale of a home in that area. Just a rumor of this. You know, so it's taken out of our control. They are able to run at whatever speed they want to. You know, I submitted 8 questions today, and one of them is I'm very interested to see if there are any company employees or family members tied to the construction company who performed the work or the financial institution from which the money was secured, because they didn't get a bond, they didn't do anything. Don't know the finances, but that's an exorbitant amount of money for 400 homes.
And Mr. Bartle, tell me what community you are in?
Elm Hills Boulevard.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, I just want to say, like several of the units down that street are fourplexes. So you're talking under 1,000 square feet. You're not talking, like the gentleman said before that spoke for, I believe, Juanita. It's like he said, you know, those properties, they're only large enough for 1 or 2 people. It's not a family that's able to live in those homes, but they're all proposed at the same increase of the water, where it's literally $175 a month more for the water and sewer than what we were paying. We had our 1/4 of our fourplex sold, and this rumor of this excessive bill or increase has cost us the sale of our unit. An individual cannot afford to purchase it knowing they might be faced with a $200 water bill, and an investor's not interested in it because they can't rent it and make any money with that type of a water bill and then try to excessive rent. The area doesn't afford for this type of value. So it's actually decreased our home or our property value of our unit.
And, you know, why isn't the payback over a 10-year period, like a bond maybe? And putting all of the money in 1 year and wanting to recoup it back in 3 years isn't how you do it. It's not how you build a house. You don't put all of your money in 1 year and hope to pay it off in 3 years. It's an investment, you know, so it's a long-term plan. This is a utility that we're talking about, and these are long-term plans. They're not something that you're going to turn around in 1 or 3 years to recoup your money.
Now I can see that they've built a new lagoon there, but I don't see where that's done anything to the water service, the water pressure, the quality of water, anything into the unit itself.
And I don't know if there's any studies on the quality of the water before and the quality of water after. Any improvements? I haven't seen any. You know, it's the functional aspect of the improvement is still the same. It's the same as it was before. There's no functional difference. And I don't know if there's been any samples taken and I think metering is a big part of it. If they're going to spend money, I don't know why they wouldn't have put in individual meters to be able to pass this along according to the usage.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Do we have any questions from council for the Bartles? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the commissioners for the Bartles? Okay, I don't see anyone. Thank you. You are excused. The
Thank you.
next,
Thank you.
the next name I have on my list is Jesse Cooper.
Yeah. I believe you're on mute again.
You're muted again, Judge.
Oh, man. Okay, is there a Jessica Cooper? Is there a Jessica Cooper here? All right, we'll call that name at the end. Kenneth and Stephanie Campbell.
You're here.
Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and swear you both in. Kenneth Campbell, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. And Stephanie Campbell, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead and state and spell your last name.
Campbell, C-A-M-P-B-E-L-L.
Thank you, sir. And please go ahead with your comments.
After just listening to the last couple of people, I don't know if there's much more that I could add to it. You know, I think my initial comments or my initial thoughts were, you know, just, you know, we could understand 10, 15% over several years increase. We could see that, you know, but to be such a drastic increase over several years seems really, really far out there. You know, I mean, I'm not studied up like the Mr. Bartle right in front of me, but man, you know, we understand, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, and to be honest, I got a next door neighbor, you know, and he told me about, you know, this coming up, what's going to happen. And he says, please get on there because, and he told me, he says, I'm not prepared to be able to handle such a drastic increase in water and sewer. He said, that's going to kill him. You know, he's going to, you know, I mean, they've been in their house for many, many years, but he said, this is going to really almost take them under. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm
They're on a
talking
fixed
about.
income. They can only afford so much. And that's what we are. We're in a veterans community. And we're part of the veterans community out here. I can name on our street, you know, how many of us are, you know, ex-military, you know, and when we get out and then we find civilian jobs, we're not, you know, it's not an option for us. And, you know, we try to look out for our neighbors and everything like that. And so, you know, when we got the paper saying that the increase is going to be so much, we've been in our house 12 years. And we just, this isn't reasonable. It's just not reasonable. And when I was listening to Mrs. Bartle, you know, and they lost the sale of their home because of this, you know, that's just not right. You know, we weren't informed, we weren't told about meetings, we didn't have a say-so in if this new system could be put in or not, nothing. And when we don't have a say-so in that, and this is our home, and you guys just go ahead and do kind of what you feel like you want to do, it affects us. You know, we're the ones that you're wanting to pay for this now. And like my husband just said, you know, 10% increase, I can see, you know, going up $10 a month, maybe $20 a month over the next couple of years or whatever, and then maybe increase. That's reasonable. But when you take us from a $45 payment and now you're expecting us to pay over, you know, $150, $200, that's unreasonable. And so that's my thought on that.
That's
Thank you.
I mean, Mr.
Go ahead.
Bartle, I see he's down there with his wife still, and how you explained that was really, really good. We do appreciate that.
And Mr. Campbell,
Thank you.
what community do you live in?
We're in a Lake Michael subdivision,
Okay.
right by the state park.
All right. And does that conclude your remarks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do any of the council have questions for the Campbells? I'm seeing shaking heads. I don't hear any. Do any commissioners have any comments or questions for the Campbells? I don't hear any. Thank you. You're both excused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next name I have on my list is Walter Clark. Is there a Walter Clark
Yes.
on the call? I think
Yes.
somebody said yes. Yes. All right. Mr. Clark, I'm going to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Thank you. And please, if you could state and spell your last name.
Walter Clark, C-L-A-R-K.
Thank you, sir. Please tell the commissioners your comments.
I do not live in the park, but I do own the park. I would try to sell the park with the raise that they're recommending, it be impossible. Utilities right now are $220 a month. Utilities and the lot rent. Well, I have to pay the water bill and the sewer bill along with the lot rent. It would make my lot rent have to go up to about $400. Property value on the people that own their homes would probably go to, because most of them, if they couldn't pay their water bill, I can't pay it for them, and they can't afford to have their trailers moved, so their trailers would be worth nothing. And that'd be the same way with the park. I would have to close the park, and I figured the value of the park is about $800,000, and I would just have to close it up because people can't afford that kind of pay. The water is still undrinkable. The water has a bad smell at times. It still turns the stools and the tubs orange. Hot water tanks are about every 6 months that need to replace the elements. There's no meters, so a person that's living by themselves pays the same as a family of 6, which doesn't seem fair to me. They did nothing to the water lines or the sewer line within the park. As far as the improvements, I don't see no improvements that they made for the park. Everything is the same. It's never not changed.
Mr. Clark, tell me the name of the park you're referring to.
Elm Hills Mobile Home Park,
All right.
1405 Elm Hills Boulevard.
Thank you, sir.
I have 40, right now I have 40 trailers there. And all 40 of them would become worth nothing if this goes through, because they like I say, most of the people are on fixed incomes, and there's no way they could afford to move their trailers. So this costs around $5,000 to move a trailer. So that's about my complaints.
Thank you, sir. Do any of the council have questions for Mr. Clark?
John Kleiser from OPC.
Yes, Mr. Kleiser, a little more volume and go ahead.
Sorry about that. Mr. Clark, you had mentioned some problems regarding the quality of the water service. Have you contacted Elm Hills directly regarding those problems?
No. No, I have not.
All right.
residents complain constantly about it.
Um,
They have to buy their water. They can't drink the water. It's cloudy all the time. It's just not good water to drink.
you had mentioned something about changing the elements. Can you please elaborate on that just a little bit for me?
Your hot water tanks, they're electric. They have two heating elements inside the tank that heats the water up.
Hot water. That's all I needed. Thank you. I hadn't put that together for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know why I wasn't thinking that. And just to verify, none of the lots are individually metered or anything. It's all you pay for the water and then bill that out separately to each of your residents.
Yeah, I have to collect it and send it in.
Okay.
And I don't get nothing for doing that either.
Thank you very much. That was my question.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiser. Any other questions from council? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Judge,
Yes, Commissioner Coleman, go ahead.
I'd like to know if staff can tell me or anyone else if the Department of Natural Resources has any, if we have any information from Department of Natural Resources relative to any issues, any complaints on file or anything from the department, and if we know if there have been any boil orders that have been issued relative to Am Hill.
Yes, we have had some boil orders.
Okay, and are the boil orders consistent, prevalent? How often does this happen?
Well, I don't know how consistent it is, but we've had this past year, it's been probably 2 times that I know of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any comments from council for staff in regard to the commissioner's question?
Judge, unfortunately, off the top of my head, I do not know the answer to the commissioner's question. However, I'm happy to check with staff and get a response.
Excellent. I'll leave you to that. Any other commissioner questions or comments for Mr. Clark? No, Mr. Clark, thank you. You are excused.
Thank you.
And the next witness I have on my list is Chris and Wendy Finks. Is there a Chris or Wendy Finks on the line? F-I-N-K-E-S. Okay, we'll call at the end of the hearing. The next witness I have is Darren Tobias.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Tobias, I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you please state and spell your last name and also tell us in which community you live?
Last name is Tobias, Tobias, and I live at Rainbow Acres homeowners community.
Thank you, sir. Please go ahead with your comments to the commissioners.
Well, the big questions that we had was that when we met with the representatives of Elm Hills at the time, Todd Thomas, we invited all of the community and sent letters to everybody and everything. And we were told up front that, I mean, we're just waste. We're not dealing with water. That our sewer rates we're going to go up to $75 to $90. And then we get a letter that's much more than that, small community, and they have done the work, but the same as I've heard from others, we are retired military community. Majority of our members are retired and fixed incomes, and going from, what we did was where we took care of our lagoon to having to go to a contractor, somebody to take care of it for us. And that increase, when we told our members that we were going to go to about $75 to $90, and then they get a letter that says, "Oh, it's going to be this much more." It was a shock to the systems. A lot of people have complained about it and wondering what was going to happen. Now they have done a lot of work down there. So, but from what I understand, one of the things was that they put in a larger system, or a better system than what was required for our stuff, our area. Much more cost, that with no explanation of why they had to go so much higher. So that was our big question there, is the cost, the difference from what they first told us. And I understand an estimate, but it just was so much more.
Thank you, Mr. Tobias. Are there any questions from council?
John Kleiser from OPC.
Mr. Kleiser, go ahead.
Mr. Tobias, when exactly were you told that the rates were going to go up $75 to $90?
When we first arranged for the acquisition of our lagoon, which would have been about 3 years ago, I'd say. And when we first negotiated, talking about what we were needing done and everything like that, because prior to that, our homeowners association organization, or our leadership, myself and 2 others, were the ones that were taking care of lagoon activities, trying to keep up with DNR and all that. And when the DNR rules changed so much, we couldn't keep up with it, and we didn't have the skill set to do so. So we found the company, and it was recommended for this company. Of course, local. And at that point, through those discussions, and we had a community meeting, as well as we sent letters to the community. We have about 44 units total that service this lagoon system. And that's when they were told that the estimate on the repairs that was needed would end up costing us going to about between $75 and $90 total per month for our waste. And I'm looking at the paper here, and it came up to I lost it. There it is. It was $114 is the proposed rate, $113.60. And it doesn't seem like that would be much of a difference, but when you're facing a lot of fixed incomes and elderly people, it's a big shock to systems whenever they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay bills, especially when a lot of these people haven't been working for a while. And then to see this, so it raised a lot of questions. Now, as far as what they did to the lagoon, I know they did work, but I had heard that they had put in a better system than what was required, or more than what was required for the system we needed, and don't know why. And I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it was a lot more cost. And I don't know if that's what the cause for the increase like that or not, but that's where our questions are coming from.
All right, thank you very much. That was my only question.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiser. Any other questions from council for Mr. Tobias?
Judge, this is Mark Johnson from staff.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
I have no questions for Mr. Tobias. However, I would like to state that I was able to contact staff and we are unaware of any recent DNR violations associated with these systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And any commissioner questions or comments for Mr. Tobias? All right, hearing none. Mr. Tobias, thank you very much. You are excused.
Thank you.
I have two more witnesses, and then I'm going to read through the list of 4 names that we've had that we weren't here when we called them. So we are probably within 10 minutes or so of ending the hearing. And I will ask at the end for any additional comments if there are others on the line who did not register. Mary and Stanley Walker. Is there a Mary and Stanley Walker on the line? Okay, we'll come back and call them at the end. And Mary and Steve Conley.
We're here.
Yes, Miss Conley, I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Steve Conley, I'll go ahead and swear you in at this point too. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you both. And if you could please state and spell your last name and give us the community that you live in so we know which system you're served by.
Yes, sir. This is Mary and Steve Conley, Conley. We are homeowners in the Elm Hills community.
Thank you. Go ahead with your comments.
We would just like to say that we agree with the majority of the individuals here that have already commented on the current situation. We would like to state that we own our home here. We've been here about 2 years. We are a family of 7 and we have 1 income in our household. Does that concern me as far as the giant increase from a $30 bill to a $200 bill? Yes. Our mortgage is something that needs to be paid. We have to have water. Yes, we expect to have clean water. But our major concern on top of that is our community, because we know that living here, we have other individuals, a lot of elderly folks, a lot of individuals that live in housing that rent, that this will affect drastically. Whether it drives them out of their home or they get kicked out, it's going to really affect our community. And it's really honestly asinine to take, something from $40 and raise it to that extreme measure in such a short period of time. My question is, why was there not some kind of a phase-in plan for the sewer system, for the water system to be put in, where the community was made aware prior to hand, where we could be on top of it and we can make those payments instead of everything having to come down at once? Boom, here's your system, here's your payment. It's really honestly, it's too much for here. Since we've been here, we've been through 2 boil orders here at Elm Hills. The water still doesn't taste any different. There's no change in it. It still smells like the sewer every now and then. And I can't see a $2 million water system put in here. I really can't. The lagoon is about the only thing that I've seen change. Drastically, no. But like I said, there's not really been any changes for the cost. The cost also concerns us. Why was this necessary? Why was the amount necessary? Was there no other options? There was not something cheaper that was more cost efficient that could have been put into place for our community, for what we can afford? Because this is not something that we can afford, and this is, definitely not something that we can agree with. I don't want to see, property values go down. I don't want to see, our neighbors lose, their renters, or their homes. So, we didn't find out about this until we got the first letter that said that we were going to have a rate increase of almost $200. And for somebody that comes, I come from inside of town. My water bill in town was nowhere near $50, but we turn around and we have, we pay 27 and some change here now, and they're expecting us to automatically go to 200. That is absolutely outrageous for anybody to have to pay that for water. Water is a necessity. We need it. We would like to have clean water here. We would like to have freshly filtered water. We also understand we live on a well that we have to maintain, but at that cost, it's just ridiculous.
Thank you, Ms. Conley. Mr. Conley, would you like to add anything?
Oh, thank you. She said it all.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from council for
Yes.
the Conleys?
Sorry, Your Honor, John Kleiser, OPC.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Kleiser.
You're obviously not the first person who has mentioned the concept of a phase in. Theoretically, it's possible that if the commission were to approve a phase in, it might end up meaning that customers would have to pay slightly more in the long run to cover what's called the carrying cost. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Yes, he can't hear very well.
Okay. Just theoretically, would you believe that the community would be better served by having rates phase in over time, even if that led to a slight increase in the total dollar amount paid?
If we're not paying $200 right out of the door, nobody can afford. Honestly, nobody can afford $200 on their water bill straight out the door. We don't know when it's going to happen. People have been scared for weeks, months, not knowing when this hike is going to start. And now we're under a COVID pandemic where people already can't afford things because they're losing jobs and they're sick. But now we're getting $200 extra shoved down our throats because of something that was decided without any say from any of us. Nobody had discussed anything as far as I'm aware of with me or anybody in this community as far as the upgrade on the well. Do I know that the well was damaged and there was things that needed to be repaired? Yes. And I also know that when you guys had acquired it in 2018, there's some things, yes, that needed to be done. Grateful for things that needed to be done, but I think it really should have been a thought out plan, and the repairs on that well should have been phased in. It shouldn't have been let's do it all in one go, so that we have to pay you guys a ridiculous amount of money just to get your investment back. I don't necessarily know that yes, we could probably phase it in through time, but not this $200 is just too much. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Thank you. I understand. Thank you. Judge Hatcher?
Yes, sir.
This is highly unorthodox, and I can understand given the situation, but I would honestly like to pose to all the commenters at large the same question effectively, whether or not a phase-in would be preferable, even if it meant a slight increase at the end of the day. I can obviously wait to the end to do that. I don't know if that's something that's possible. Again, I understand given the limitations if that's not something we can do, but I'd like to throw that out there now.
Mr. Kleiser, I want to ask your question. Do you mind if I ask it in the negative of our witnesses to see if anybody objects to your plan, if they would like to speak?
Any way that you want to do it is fine. I just want to help to try and get this cleared up here.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I would, again, I'd recommend we wait till the end after everybody else has had a chance.
Absolutely. And we are just about there within a few minutes. So first, let me go back through our witness list. Witnesses that we have called that have registered to testify but are not here yet, or were not here when they were called. Is there a Robert Meyer on the call? I don't hear anyone. Chuck Gray, is there a Chuck Gray on the call? Let the record reflect. I hear no answer. Jessica Cooper. Is there a Jessica Cooper? Let the record show there was no answer. And the last name, Mary and Stanley Walker. And let the record show there was no answer. For all of the customers who have been here tonight, Mr. Kleiser has asked several of you, and you've heard him ask others if they would be in favor of a phased-in rate increase. I think Mr. Kleiser might get his information more easily if I ask if anyone disagrees with Mr. Kleiser's suggestion of a phased-in rate increase. So with that, I'm going to go. Mr. Kleiser, go ahead.
I just want to make clear that I believe that it might end up causing a larger overall increase as a result of that. It's not a pure benefit, so to speak, if that makes sense. I don't want to make it seem too obvious a question.
We have a hard time hearing you.
I'll repeat for Mr. Kleiser. What he said was he wants to make sure that you as the customer are informed that his proposal is a smaller incremental increase, phased-in increase, but that the end result would probably be higher than a one-time increase as envisioned now. So that over time, if the solution is every 2 years, there's a rate increase, it might add up to more.
Let me ask a question. If this increase was going to take place, there is no time frame in the future of when there would be a reduction. So how can it cost more?
To phase it, to phase the payment increase, how could it cost more? The cost of the improvement is the cost of the improvement. So why, I mean, for my water bill to go from 33 to my water and sewage to go from $33 a month to over $175 a month, and I'm talking about a unit of under 1,000 square feet with maybe 1 to 2 maximum, 2 people maximum living there. How could a $200 water bill be feasible? In town, out of town, anywhere? That doesn't make that makes zero sense.
So I think we're looking at two different things. One is the investment. He's saying the investment will cost more over a period of time. But our rate, we will only be paying a certain amount. If we phase this out over 10 years, and takes us 10 years to get to $200 payment, we will not be paying more.
Mr. Kleiser, can I call on you to help out here?
Yes. The investment has been made. The money has been spent. Confluence is now attempting to recoup the cost of the investments that it has made. If you ask the company to wait a longer period of time, there is a cost to the company. It's called the carrying cost of capital generally. The idea is the longer you make them wait for repayment, the more in theory they would be entitled to recoup. Again, this is all theoretical, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case. I am attempting to gauge the public's interest in the concept of a phased-in rate.
Let me ask you a question. Why do they have to be made whole? Why are they the only one who has to be made whole? And we as homeowners do not have to be made whole. So I'm already sensing a bias in your decision.
No, let me interrupt here because I see this going a little askew. The hearing is to get comments from you for the commissioners. What Mr. Kleiser is saying is he very well understands, and he represents the Office of the Public Counsel. He understands that everyone who is testifying is objecting to the rate increase. As a second question, however, that comes out with the commission. The commission hasn't decided one way or the other on that. If the commission says, yes, there should be a rate increase, he is wanting to know how many of you think that, well, if there has to be a rate increase, we would prefer that it be a smaller rate increase now, but it may be larger over time. The analogy that occurs to me is your home mortgage. A 30-year home mortgage costs more than a 15-year home mortgage. The house costs the same.
Yeah.
And it's that interest on the back end. I think that's the analogy that he's kind of getting.
Right. But you've already bought the house for me. So the only choice I have now is to extend the payment. So I think we would all be in agreement that we have to do it incrementally. But that doesn't alleviate the poor decisions that have been made up to this point.
I agree with you completely. But Judge Hatcher's right. That's beyond the scope of this
Okay.
commentary. I apologize.
And I'm sure that the Office of Public Counsel will be taking your testimony and using that as they go through the case, or as this case progresses, in bringing those to light. So I guess with that said, if anyone would have an objection to Mr. Kleiser's proposal of, if there has to be a rate increase, would you rather have the smaller monthly payments phased in or the larger upfront? Kind of that analogy of the 30-year mortgage or the 15-year mortgage. And I know that's not a very good analogy.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Tobias here again.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that as I said earlier, when we first did this plan, our comments to our community members were, this was what the plan was to be, between $75 and $90. So they were planning on that. So a phase in for my particular community, Rainbow Acres, is probably not a big point right now. So I would have to say, in answer to his question, if it would go to increase the overall amount, I'd probably have to say no, because my community was prepared for some of this money. Now, the higher amount, depending on what the commission decides on, we're going to have to deal with whatever anyway. But in answer to his question, yeah, I'd have to say no on that for our community. I can understand the other community.
Yeah.
Thank you for the time.
Darren, I agree with Darren. This is Sandra Welly, and I agree with Darren. We put out paperwork. We invited to several meetings with Mr. Thomas. I believe our board did everything that they could to make this an honest contract, selling our lagoon over to Elm Hill. And their estimate, just in talking, it was nothing ever in writing that, oh yeah, plan on your rates to, be somewhere between $75, $90. That was, not anything in a contract with them, just simply in a meeting conversation. We're ready for it. We should be ready for it. If people haven't planned for that in our association, then they have planned for it. But they've been notified and invited to many, many meetings to have their input. So I think they've been fair with us. I'm hoping Darren agrees with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Welly. I'll go ahead and go down the list. Lydia and Chris Naylor. Would you like to comment on the public council's thoughts?
Yes, I would just like to say that I don't agree with actually paying any more than what I've already paying, because I moved here with the expectations that I was going to be able to stay here for a long period of time. We own our home, and we just weren't ready and not prepared, and we can't do it. We can't pay any more than what we've already agreed to pay. So I just disagree with it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Juanita Herring.
Hi, this is Bill for Juanita.
Yes.
I think under any, and there's a couple of issues here, but I think under any circumstances, be it graduated or all at one time, that, are we getting stepped on?
No, I muted everyone. Go ahead.
Okay, is that a $200 increase, be it now or be it 10 years from now, is a ridiculous amount. Now, that being said, coming at this specifically for Mr. Kleiser is coming at this incrementally over a long period of time up to a reasonable finality. And to me, $200 is not a reasonable finality. But if it needs to increase a little bit beyond that, then I could perhaps support it. But if right now you're saying that instead of paying $210 or $200, you're going to be paying $250 at the end of 10 years, no, it ain't happening, because the overall amount is absolutely ridiculous. And it is my firm understanding that once the ROI is completed and once the money's paid back for all the capital investments, if nothing more, the rates should be going in the other direction. Hey, we're done collecting. We don't need to pay anymore. So here, your rates are going back down again. And I think that's got it for me. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Cargile? Robert Cargile?
I kept going back and forth.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It comes down to a number game, basically. We don't really know the numbers or how much they're actually getting in. Yes, the increase would probably help, but I don't know how many years. I don't know the full numbers of how many people we have and everything else, who pays what. I'm just doing it just from my own household. And I just know for me, as a one-person household, a rate, over a 50% increase is little high. My other question, I was thinking of listening to all this was, who was watching their budget this entire time? Somebody really missed the ball. And as far as I'm concerned, Elm can meet that other half, that they overspent without, really thinking about it, and then said, well, the customers will pay for it, pretty much. We'll just raise the rate on them. That's not the way you do it. Again, I can see when they first bought us, they went ahead and raised it, which I didn't mind because it raised up about another $10, $10 or so dollars a month, which wasn't bad. But then you're going to go to, we're going for almost, $70 more than what we were paying. And that's where I have kind of an issue. I wouldn't mind seeing it increase a little, even for longer times, but it becomes a number game, basically, in the long run. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your comments. Next, the Bartles.
I've already said my piece. I'll let my wife comment.
Well, I think if we have to be dealt an increase, I think a gradual increase is going to be more suitable for everyone so that they can plan. I think a $200 water bill is excessive if it's today or 6 months from now or 1 year from now or 24 months from now. I just think that's an excessive water and sewage bill. And as I said, it has the rumor of this bill, increase in this bill, utility bill in the Elm Hills Boulevard area has cost us the sale of our house. It has decreased the sale or the value of our unit. And I know as I drive down the road out there, I see, for rent sign, for sale signs. It's just like Mr. Carlisle, I believe, just said, somebody went over budget, I don't know what happened, but we're just faced now to take it, to absorb all the cost, and it's unfair. It's excessive and it's unfair.
Okay, thank you very much. Kenneth and Stephanie Campbell.
We're here.
All right, thank you. Do you have any comments just about Mr. Kleiser's thoughts about your preference between a shorter term but maybe higher initial monthly bill versus a longer term phase-in that would have lower monthly bills but might end up with a larger total price tag?
I understand what you're saying. First of all, I'm going to say that I think that what everybody else has said on here is correct. Somebody's way over budget, and now they're trying to sock us with a bill. Phasing us into a thing if we have to. We've been in our house 12 years. Our payments were only $30 until you guys took over. Then we went up to, I think it was 45 or 48 that we're paying now. And then we got a bill a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, saying that they were going to take us to, way over $200 now. And I think that phasing us in, if you're going to increase it, maybe $10 over periods of whatever, that's fine. But like my husband just asked, once that's paid and you have paid everything, you've asked us to pay everything that you guys have went over budget on and everything that you guys have decided without contacting the community. Now you're expecting us to pay that. So if we have to pay that, once that's paid off, is our payments going to go back to the $48 then? Because we shouldn't be paying for something or putting into a pot that you screwed up. So that was our question.
Okay, I do want to make sure that everyone understands Mr. Kleiser is working for the Office of Public Counsel. He represents the public interest in this. So I think what he is trying to ask isn't in defense of the company, but is saying, okay, if this happens. Okay.
Yeah, I understand what he's asking, Mr. Hatcher. I totally understand. But enough what the comments have been and he writes down or he can go back and look at, that's what he needs to take to the council and say, this is what the communities are saying, that they feel that this is not right. And if he's working for us, then that's what he needs to listen to and take to the communities.
Thank you. Next, we have Walter Clark. Mr. Clark, are you on the line still?
Yes, I still am.
All right, thank you. Did you want to comment on Mr. Kleiser's suggestion?
No, but I do have a question. They ran the city water down to the park, but did nothing with it. Are we paying for that too? Did you hear?
Yes, and like I said before, Mr. Cargile, or I'm sorry, Mr. Clark, we aren't able to answer questions. You are able to ask questions of that email address, and then the parties will be able to work through that and be able to hopefully get back with an answer to you. But right now, the commissioners are just trying to take input. They aren't in a position that they can answer questions because they still have to make the final decision. And I'd also, this is a good point to make sure and interject that. It's the commissioners that decide this. What's being discussed tonight is merely the proposal by the company. That'll all go through a process where all of the parties are going to be able to make their objections, make their cases, but then ultimately it's the commissioners who decide what that rate is, if it needs to be adjusted, and when that adjustment happens. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
One more question.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
How do we get a copy of the money that they spent, what they spent it on, or anything like that? That's my question. And also, Chuck Gray he called me and said he unmuted, but he could not get on. He was asking me if maybe you could call on him again.
Okay.
Chuck Gray.
And who is that?
Chuck Gray.
Okay. All right. And again, Mr. Clark, I'll refer your question. You might want to send that to the email address, elmhillscomments@psc.mo.gov.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gray, if you hold on just a second, I'm just one person away from finishing this question for Mr. Kleiser. Mary and Steve Conley.
Yes, as far as the phase in, if what's going to happen is we're going to end up having to pay regardless of our opinion, because like everyone has said, somebody jumped the gun, made a big mistake, and now we have to pay for it. If it's something that's phased in, so be it. 200 off the jump, okay, no. Do I agree with the phase-in plan as well? Not really, because I don't agree with the cost. I don't agree with the decision that was made to repair the well that's here. And as far as over here at Elm Hills, there was no notification for no meetings with the companies in regards to the repairs that were made or needed to be made prior to all of this. So it would have been nice for Elm Hills to be a little bit more transparent and communicate a little better to the people that are supposed to be expected to pay these payments and say, hey, this is what we're looking at for repairs. This is what we're looking at for you to pay. If it was $100 and less, so be it, great. That was something we could have been prepared for. Whereas now we're looking at, oh, here's your $200 payment out of the blue. That's just ridiculous. And I think really Elm Hills should be responsible here for some of the cost, just because that was the decisions they made, the decisions they made as far as the investment and the high amount of investment. Yes, we are going to be expecting to pay at some point and phase in. We would have to do phase in. Do we agree with it? No.
Okay. Thank you. I hear that. Our last witness, Chuck Gray. Mr. Gray, are you on the line? I was asked to call again for Chuck Gray.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Gray.
This is Robert Meyer. I've been trying to get on all evening.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry to
Mr. Meyer?
interrupt.
Oh, no, not a problem at all. We were just getting ready to wrap up, so I'm glad you caught us. Everyone has testified. What we'll do is I'll swear you in, and then I'll ask for your comments to the commissioners regarding the Elm Hills rate cases.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Let me get my paperwork straightened out. Mr. Meyer, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Could you please state and spell your last name and tell us the community you live in so we know what water system serves you?
Yes, Meyer is my last name, Meyer. And I don't live in the district, but I own a lot of units in the Elm Hills system in Sedalia. And I appreciate the chance to comment and join in. It's a very, very important case for everybody involved, and we need to come hopefully to a middle ground that will benefit all involved. I understand the owners of the water and sewer system have to get a return and increase in the rates due to the changes in the system, the improvements. And I also stand a lot to lose just respectfully request that commissioners and everybody listening consider all the facts of the case. I have a great investment. I have there's approximately 115 to 130 units on the Elm Hill system, and I own 42 of those units. And I believe Mr. Clark has about 40 of those units. So between him and myself, we have over 80 units out of, approximately 130 units. Based upon the increase that is proposed, which is approximately $175 per unit increase, that would change my asset value, because they are all rental property, approximately $1,125,000 that I would lose to that type of increase. I have a long history with this system. I've owned my first units I bought 27 years ago in 1994. Those units are within this system are very unique because Elm Hills is predominantly a rental consumer, and they range from mainly lower income rents. For instance, I think Mr. Clark said his trailers were $220 rent. My cheapest one-bedroom apartment is $260. Range on up to some of the bigger units on Elm Hills itself versus Villa Drive, which are rent for $650. But I have approximately 30 units that rent for under $500. So the approximate value of those units on a per unit basis right now, I would be, prior to this type of increase, I would have been happy to, if I would have been able to sell those for $35,000 a unit. If such an increase happens, $175 increase, that's going to decrease the value of those units about $26,000 a unit, which is just a devastation. My annual cost that will increase there is $88,200, which is a major part of my income for my family. And buying those in 1994, which was when I bought my first 12 units, and they were dilapidated, and I've slowly bought additional units over the years. Starting with those, I bought those for $15,000 units way back then, and they rented for $275 27 years ago. So to be able to raise the rents to cover such is not possible. And you can't raise that rent more than the rents on units that are on the city system. So, being able to do that doesn't solve our problem. I do understand that Mr. Cox and the company needs a rate increase. I was in approximately, I'm not good with dates, but in approximately, I think in 2001, but I'm probably wrong, sometime within that period of time, the well went down of the Missouri utilities, and it had been not maintained for years through the early histories of my owning the property out there. At the point that well went down, the owner of Missouri Utilities walked away, and as an owner, I had to protect my investment and hired a well company to come in and put the well in the system, and went around, and other members of the community also with vested interests also shared in that cost, and we put in a well. From that point on, there was nobody operating the system, and I operated the system without having any experience and knowledge of that, including the sewer system. And at some point, the Public Service Commission appointed me as a trustee, temporary trustee on the system. Am I still being heard? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're doing fine.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Just wanted to check.
Oh, you're good.
And so I, operated that system. I'm guessing a year and a half, trying to keep it going. And that meant that I was not drawing any money from it. I was putting money into it. I was repairing things myself. I was learning. I was issuing boil orders. Whatever it took, I was meeting with the DNR to deal with the sewer system, the waste system, because it was overgrown with trees and other growth, and just the whole system has had a history of been in trouble. And I got a hold of course, an operator, because I wasn't a licensed operator. I found one and got him, of course, got his name on it, and we ran that. Then the Public Service Commission appointed Mr. Cover, attorney out of Clinton, as the trustee on that system, and he ran it from then on. I helped out in various things. My duties decreased as he got a hold of other people that he wanted to operate it. I did do the billing for him all that time from them early 2000s when he took over until the new owners come into play. So I have a long history of this system. I would just request that the commissioners and all those that are involved, don't know if this is something you do, but it would be great if you were able to get on maybe the Beacon Snyder site and look at an aerial view of this system to see what kind of units, residential units, are on the system. It varies. There are very few homes in that, which means that the overall value of units that have consumers on the system are low. We're not talking $100,000, units here. We're talking from Mr. Clark's, of course, told you approximate value of his park of 40 units, and of course my apartments. They range from anywhere. Like I said, I'd be happy as a lark if anybody would like to give me $35,000 a unit. And there's some in between, but there's very few houses on the system. And this type of increase is just devastating. It's took me, Mr. Cox, I found out about this when he first started looking at it before he purchased it. And, this was the end of the world for me because this was my life. Thank God that it has taken this long for it to come about. I guess what I don't understand is I guess I was wishful thinking, but after they purchased this system, they put in for a rate increase, and it only went to $25 from approximately $18. And so, I think everybody on the system took a big sigh of relief. And then we've went some years, and now we're proposing $200, which is just a devastating amount. I don't wish ill on anybody. I wish the owners very good luck, but I think they share in the responsibility as well as all of us, the commission included, to come to a common ground that works for everybody involved. Such an increase is going to devalue that community area. Usually a improvement in water and sewer as stated on the brochures put out, increases the value of property. That isn't going to be the case in this type of an increase. We're already seeing the impact and the scare of it. And if you're taking, if as an owner, we pay the water and trash. Mr. Clark does, I know. I do, and in the water and sewer, I mean. And to take, for instance, I have one bedroom unit that rents for $260, and to take another $175 out of that unit just makes it worthless. And the reason that's $260 is because there's a 75-year-old man in there that gets $750 Social Security. So I just prayerfully request a very in-depth consideration of the system to really analyze the system and what type of units they are and who's within that system as a consumer, and hopefully find a common ground rate change that we can all live with. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Are there any questions for Mr. Meyer from council? I'm seeing head shakes. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Meyer from the commissioners? Hearing none. While we are on our last couple minutes, I'd like to go ahead and go through the list of registered names who were not present yet. Chuck Gray. Is there a Chuck Gray on the line? Jessica Cooper. Is there a Jessica Cooper on the line? Mary and Stanley Walker. Is there anyone else who would like to testify before we close out this hearing? I would like to thank all of our participants today for their testimony. If you have additional comments or someone you know who could not be present would like to make a comment, you can make written comments by contacting the same email address used to register for this hearing. That again is elmhillscomments@psc.mo.gov. You can also contact the Office of the Public Counsel or by going to the PSC's webpage. And again, that submit comments button is in the upper right-hand corner. This hearing is now adjourned. We are off the record. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for doing such a good job of keeping everybody reined in, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you for indulging my question. I know that added a lot of time.
That's all right. We're getting there, Mr. Kleiser. It worked out.
That was quite helpful from my perspective, so I'm glad.
All right. Let me check with IT and we'll get this